Hello everybody, my name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today we'll be discussing the further liberal drift of the Southern Baptist Convention in that they have named Brent Leatherwood officially as president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, or the ERLC. The ERLC was formerly helmed by Russell Moore, who left the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission to go to Christianity, or Compromise Today as we like to call it here. And he has since been promoted to editor-in-chief over there. So things are going pretty well for Russell Moore. And he used the ERLC as a spearhead for much of the liberal drift in the SBC. He was the face of the liberal drift in the SBC. And certainly the most obvious example of it over the last decade. So the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, very controversial. They did have a vote at the annual Southern Baptist Convention of 2022 on whether to abolish the ERLC. And that vote failed miserably, unsurprisingly, I should add. But there were a lot of applause, and applause in the speeches to get rid of this organization, this highly liberalized organization. So we're going to look at the press release that the Southern Baptist Convention released. Brent Leatherwood elected ERLC president, and this was a unanimous vote according to the ERLC. So we're going to have to take their word for it, but no reason not to. It's important to note that this is the time of year when a lot of entities, Southern Baptist entities, will be having annual meetings like state, local conventions, as well as the ERLC, which is a national organization that is part of the cooperative program. So let's just read an excerpt from the article here. Prior to serving as acting president, Leatherwood held the role of chief of staff at the ERLC, as well as the entity's director of strategic partnerships. Leatherwood has an extensive background in public service and electoral politics, serving as the executive director of the Tennessee Republican Party and as director of communications and policy strategy in the Tennessee General Assembly. He has also previously served on Capitol Hill as a senior staffer for a member of Congress. Doesn't name what member. A little bit odd, but nonetheless, this is actually a pretty good resume on paper. On paper, this is a pretty good resume. As a Marylander, I can attest that the state of the Tennessee Republican Party is probably above average. If we have if there's 50 Republican parties, they're above average. Bill Lee, who we'll talk about later, is an above average governor in the United States. The ERLC Trustee Presidential Search Committee, chaired by Todd Howard of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, recommended Leatherwood to the full board after a 14-month search process. Howard likened the ERLC Search Committee process to 1 Samuel 16. Initially, the committee had a great pool of candidates and thought the next president of the ERLC could be among them. However, as the committee began the process of interviews, doors started closing. We found ourselves asking, are these all your sons? This is an odd comparison because Brent Leatherwood was acting president of the ERLC for about a year. So this is a very odd comparison because are these all your sons implies that you don't know who else is there. This actually is more of an instance of, we can't really find someone better than the acting president, so we're just going to stick with him. This is more of an instance of Brent Leatherwood getting a tryout and succeeding in the role. The first-string quarterback has gone out with an injury. He has come into the game and carried the team for a few games, and the first-string quarterback doesn't get his job back, the old Colin Kaepernick scenario with Alex Smith. So, not a good comparison to King David. Really not a good comparison when you think about how they're comparing him to King David and the anointing. Leatherwood was recommended to us from a variety of sources and became the top candidate by virtue of his leading well through various challenges facing the commission during the interim season, including a vote to disband it. He has intangible leadership qualities that we could not ignore. After a final record round of interviews with Leatherwood, the committee, for the first time in this process, voted unanimously in favor of recommending him to the full board of trustees as the next president of the ERLC. And then it just gives his personal background, and then a bunch of meaningless quotes. And we're going to pause and just point out the fact that it started out with a number of recommendations that floated Brent Leatherwood's name to the top of the list, as well as his performance, and quite a liberal performance he has given. We'll discuss that towards the end. But who's actually recommending him? And we do have some possible names. These are wonderful endorsements that Brent Leatherwood has received from a variety of SBC and state leaders. The first one is Danny Akin. And these are not in alphabetical order. I don't know what order they're in. I believe Brent Leatherwood will serve Southern Baptist well in this strategic position. He is gifted, and he's a gifted and godly man with firm biblical and Baptistic convictions, which is perhaps more than you can say about Danny Akin, who runs the wokest seminary in the Southern Baptist Convention, that is Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. And he's probably the second most powerful man in the Southern Baptist Convention is Danny Akin. He's top 3 in my opinion. You could argue that Bart Barber is number 2. I don't think that he is. I think Danny Akin is actually a little bit more powerful than Bart Barber. I don't know who else would be in competition. I think Danny Akin has surpassed Al Mohler in this category last year, and it is his time to shine as number 2. It is my privilege to recommend Brent Leatherwood to you as the next president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, the ERLC. Brent has the spiritual grounding, experience, and skill set necessary to lead the ERLC at this unique time in our convention's and nation's history. As I have observed, Brent has a strong faith, knowledge of Scripture, and an unabounding love for Jesus. These are critical tenets for anyone who leads one of our Southern Baptist entities. This is from Kevin Ezell. Kevin Ezell is the phantom menace of the Southern Baptist Convention. He is the most powerful figure in the Southern Baptist Convention. The phantom menace pulling the strings. He's the Palpatine. He is the Palpatine. Except, I don't know. We can get into a Star Wars debate. I'd prefer Palpatine to Kevin Ezell. But Kevin Ezell is the most powerful man. He is the kingmaker. He is the reason why Bart Barber is in the position that he is in. He was the reason that Ed Litton won last year at the SBC 21. He groomed J.D. Greer for leadership, and he's probably been kingmaker far longer. He used to share this power with Al Mohler. Now he is the head honcho in charge. He controls the money of the North American Mission Board. And there is a lot of money within the North American Mission Board. So that's who Bart Barber is. Or not Bart Barber. That's who Kevin Ezell is. Now let's move on to Bart Barber, the figurehead of the Southern Baptist Convention. The president of the Southern Baptist Convention. I consider it a privilege and honor to endorse Brent Leatherwood's nomination as president of the ERLC. Brent has led wisely and courageously as the interim president during what can only be described as a tumultuous and strident period in our nation and our convention. Southern Baptists and America both desperately need the information, inspiration, and guidance that the ERLC can provide under Brent Leatherwood's leadership. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Oh, my bad. I read Richard Land, the former president of the ERLC statement. Brent Leatherwood strikes me as the sort of man who loves Southern Baptists, who would have been, are, and hopes to become such a man that can rise as a statesman to speak for Southern Baptists. Such a man can also come along Southern Baptist and gently speak to us as a brother. That is a poorly worded endorsement. I like Richard Land's endorsement better, even though it was quite laughable that Richard Land believes that the ERLC is a force for good. It is not. It is moving the convention left on the issue of abortion, single-handedly almost. And then we have a couple, the National African American Fellowship states that the National African American Fellowship of the Southern Baptist Convention, the NAF, wishes to express our strong support of Mr. Brent Leatherwood's candidacy for president of the ERLC. Brent is a proven leader and trusted partner. His commitments to gospel-centered public policy, that's a joke, is seasoned by his sensitivity to the nuanced lived experiences of our diverse Southern Baptist SBC family. It's from Frank Williams and Dennis Mitchell. I don't know who those people are. And then we got Bill Lee. This is a fascinating example and endorsement here. Bill Lee is the governor of Tennessee. Tennessee has a long history of faithful men and women who love their neighbors through service in the political arena. Believers must view engagement in governance as the opportunity that it is. I can think of no one better than Brent Leatherwood to be the next president of the ERLC, leading Southern Baptists as they strive to represent Jesus through faithful and humble engagement in the public square. Bill Lee is an above-average governor in the country. Last year, Anthony ranked him 5th out of all the Republican governors in the United States. He ranked 5th. Interesting note, I will defer to his comparison of the governors, but Tennessee is a thriving conservative state at the moment. That being said, this is politics. He's repaying a political insider in the state of Tennessee. And quite frankly, if Bill Lee is actually conservative, this doesn't help his street cred with conservatives. He's endorsing an objective feminist to be head of the ERLC, and Brent Leatherwood is a feminist. So let's actually talk about what Brent Leatherwood's political activism has looked like as of late. It has looked like opposing pro-life legislation in Louisiana that would have called abortion homicide. He stated at the annual Southern Baptist Convention of 2022 that we don't want to put women behind bars, meaning that women who murder their own babies via abortion are not morally culpable for their actions. This is a feminist position. This is not a biblical position. We've done a lot of content here on Evangelical Dark Web about biblical justice versus feminism as it relates to the pro-life issue and the battle for the soul of the pro-life issue. Majority of the pro-life movement is not feminist. They do not believe in pro-life feminism. Majority actually believes that women should be held accountable in the pro-life movement. I did a video on that recently as well. Brent Leatherwood is clearly in the minority, but he holds institutional power like the pro-life feminists do. They hold institutional power. Brent Leatherwood also celebrated the appointment and confirmation of Ketanji Brown Jackson. That cannot be forgotten. Some Republican he is to celebrate, or at least obfuscate the appointment of Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court, KBJ, to the Supreme Court. He celebrated that. That's who Brent Leatherwood is. So this is a very unsurprising development in the Southern Baptist Convention. However, it is further evidence that this convention is going more and more liberal and is way beyond saving. I don't know how many board members are on the ERLC, but if the Conservative Resurgence 2.0 is to succeed or be completed, they would have to replace every single one of those board members because they all suck at their jobs. So that's really all I got to say about that. Have a blessed day. Don't forget to like this video and also subscribe if you stuck around this long. Have a blessed day. Let me know what you think about what I think in the comments section, and I'll catch you on the next one.